Mr. Bongino, you occupy that seat as the FBI's second-in-command. Yet your history demonstrates you have turned policing into a weapon against migrants and Muslims. Ilhan Omar's vocals resonated across the legislative chamber, piercing and blaming, possessing that recognizable tone she adopts when television crews are recording. She was positioned at her microphone, her fashionable hijab arranged flawlessly, her countenance displaying righteous indignation. This represented her opportunity, the inquiry she had individually demanded, the stage she intended to utilize to dismantle Dan Bongino on a nationwide broadcast. Tonight, she went on, becoming more animated about her subject, I intend to reveal your prejudice, your dishonesty, and your discriminatory plan for the public to witness. The liberal wing of the audience burst into cheering, having arrived beforehand to fill the hall, prepared to observe their squad leader defeat Trump's agency nominee. C-SPAN lenses recorded every second, with CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News all present, making this the session everyone had been anticipating. The Congressional Oversight Committee on Immigration System Integrity was the formal designation, yet everybody understood what this truly represented, a theatrical tribunal. It was Ilhan Omar opposing Dan Bongino, the squad's emerging luminary contending with Trump's divisive FBI deputy director. She had dedicated weeks to getting ready. Her team had gathered damaging background data, practiced her verbal assaults, and synchronized with sympathetic news outlets. She was prepared, while Dan Bongino rested at the testimony desk, 50 years of age, an ex-NYPD officer, a one-time Secret Service protective agent, and a Queens native to his core. He was dressed in a black suit, a crisp white shirt, and a red necktie. The traditional federal appearance, but his facial expression revealed something Omar had not foreseen. He appeared unbothered, displayed no defensiveness, and was nearly grinning, showing that small curl at the edge of his lips, the expression a police officer adopts when a detainee is about to utter something incredibly foolish. The citizens of America merit the truth, Omar persisted, that you have utilized your office to single out defenseless groups, to torment refugees, and to execute Trump's bigoted border protocols. You profess to value legal stability, yet your actual motivation is bias against individuals who resemble me, she said, prompting more cheering and camera strobes. She believed she was succeeding, or at least she imagined so, until Bongino moved closer to his audio device, and when he talked, that Queens dialect emerged distinctly. It was blue-collar New York patrolman energy, not the refined Washington rhetoric everyone awaited, as he said, Congresswoman, his tone tranquil yet commanding respect. Prior to discussing my history, let us examine your history. Let us discuss deception regarding immigration. Let us discuss matrimonial fraud. Let us discuss lying under oath. Let us discuss fiscal evasion. And let us discuss violations concerning election campaign funding. He stopped briefly, allowing the words to register, because I have served as a lawman for 2 decades, 4 years with the NYPD and 12 with the Secret Service. I have looked into deception inquiries, I have apprehended felons, and I recognize a scam when I observe one, he said, followed by another break, while the chamber fell silent. Omar's grin had solidified. And as for you, Congresswoman, Bongino said, leaning in, his gaze fixed on hers, you are perpetrating numerous federal offenses. We intend to discuss every individual one of them right here, immediately, on national television, he declared, retrieving a bulky binder sorted with markers. You desired to converse about the honesty of the immigration framework, which is excellent. So let us begin with how you cheated that very system by wetting your sling. The hall erupted in noise, while Omar's expression shifted from self-righteous assurance to paralyzed disbelief in a mere fraction of a second. Her aides were desperately glancing at one another, her lawyers bending closer, for this was not the screenplay, and this was not the way this event was intended to unfold. "You wish to discuss the integrity of migration protocols," Bongino stated again, relaxing into his seat with his police demeanor completely engaged. "Very well. Let us discuss your matrimony to Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi, a British national who, based on significant proof, happens to be your biological male sibling." He unclasped the file, extracting the initial batch of papers, saying, "Now I have handled fraud dossiers, Secret Service financial crimes, persona theft, and sham marriages. I have witnessed everything, and this specific case," he said, shaking his head, "is a classic example. So allow me to guide you through how I established you wed your brother to enact immigration deceit." Omar attempted to cut in, claiming these are revolting, bigoted plots. "But documents are not bigoted, Congresswoman." Bongino's tone remained steady, not irate, but simply factual. A police officer's voice, stating evidence is not prejudiced, data points are not prejudiced, so let us examine the data, he said, lifting the first record. "In 2009, you lawfully wed Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi, which is not debated, as you acknowledged it, and the marriage license was lodged with Hennepin County, Minnesota. It was August of 2009, making you roughly 26 or 27 years of age," he said, not pausing for a reply. "And now is where the situation becomes intriguing. Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi, let us discuss his identity, for I retrieved his scholastic transcripts from the United Kingdom, where he went to secondary school before arriving in the United States." Bongino displayed authoritative papers bearing British state stamps, UK Academy files, with the father's name recorded as Noor Saeed Elmi, confirming that is his parent. "Now let us view your asylum application papers from 1995, when your household arrived in America," he said, raising another page and placing them adjacent. "The father's name is Noor Saeed Elmi, the identical name, the precise same designation, the same orthography, Noor Saeed Elmi." He gazed at the panel, at the recording devices, and at Omar, saying, "Now I am merely a policeman from Queens, without prestigious credentials in mathematics. However, where I originate, when two individuals record the identical man as their father, that renders them siblings, specifically a brother and a sister." "Family," someone in the audience breathed sharply, while camera shutters snapped swiftly. "Yet that is merely one fragment of proof," Bongino went on. His voice remained unwavering, constructing the argument segment by segment, saying, "Let me provide you with more, specifically from social media platforms like Instagram." He retrieved printed copies, displaying them, showing Ahmed Elmi's Instagram profile before you erased everything, before you attempted to wipe the web. However, you know the saying, "The internet is eternal, and these are preserved entries," he said, beginning to recite a post from the year 2013. "Ahmed Elmi publishes a picture with your female child, your daughter from your prior connection with Ahmed Hirsi, and the description is telling. He refers to her as his niece, not his stepchild, but his niece," Bongino said, looking up, noting that if he were merely your spouse, she would be his stepdaughter. That is how matrimony functions, yet he names her his niece, which is a curious selection of words, because that is what she would be if he were your sibling. "Not your spouse, but your brother," he said, while Omar was moving her head side to side, though she was not talking, and her attorneys were murmuring frantically. "But hold on," Bongino stated, getting more intense now. "There is additional info. Let me inform you about an electronic message recovered via a Freedom of Information Act inquiry. It is from Ahmed Elmi to you in 2011. And do you wish to know what it states? He asked, withdrawing the email and reading it deliberately and distinctly. Quote, "Gratitude for aiding me in obtaining documents, sister. I will ensure I repay you once I arrive in London," unquote, followed by total quiet. Sister, Bongino said the word again, allowing it to suspend in the air. Not wife, but sister, as he addressed you as sister in a message regarding papers. Immigration documents. That is what this concerned. You wed your sibling to assist him in acquiring U.S. nationality, or at the least, student visa standing, state resident tuition perks, and a smoother route to permanent residency, yet he was not finished, noting that is still not the entirety of the proof. I possess 6 affidavits, sworn declarations under threat of perjury from individuals in the Minneapolis Somali group, people who knew your household and knew you in Somalia. Before you escaped, do you know what they all claim? He asked, holding the pile of papers. They all state Ahmed Nur Saeed Elmi is your brother. All 6 separately, while under oath, recognize him as your sibling, including one named Mrs. Fadumo Hassan, who knew your clan before the civil conflict. She is extremely precise, extremely thorough, stating Ahmed Elmi is your biological brother, leaving no uncertainty and no perplexity. Bongino arranged his sheets, staring straight at Omar, saying, "Now let us discuss the chronology, because this is where the deception becomes transparent. In 2002, you held an Islamic wedding ritual with Ahmedou Hirsi, not statutory, merely religious, and you have 2 offspring with him, born in 2006 and 2008. 2 children, he enumerated on his digits. Then in 2008, you part ways with Hirsi, a religious dissolution, not legal since you were never lawfully wed. In 2009, instantly, you legally marry Ahmed Elmi, the man sharing the same father as you, your brother. But here is the truly intriguing portion. From 2009 until 2011, you, Ahmed Hirsi, and Ahmed Elmi all resided at the identical location, all 3 of you in a Columbia Heights, Minnesota unit. He took out rental agreements, power invoices, and voter enrollment logs, showing all 3 names at the same domicile, meaning you lived with your children's father and legal spouse. Your legal husband, who coincidentally is your brother, at the same time under the same roof, causing someone in the spectators to ask what, audibly. In 2009, directly after wedding you, Ahmed Elmi registered at North Dakota State University, your former college, and do you know what marriage to a U.S. national provides? In-state tuition, considerably less expensive than out-of-state or foreign prices, plus it renders you qualified for U.S. student financial aid initiatives. It also grants legal standing to remain in the nation, Bongino said, leaning in, noting he finished school in 2012, then relocated to Minneapolis, then was removed from subsidized housing. He then returned to the UK where he resides presently. Mission completed, obtained his diploma, obtained his perks, game finished. He withdrew one concluding paper, saying, "Here is the definitive proof. Your divorce petition from 2017, which you signed under threat of perjury. That implies falsifying it is a serious crime. And in that petition, you asserted, and I quote, 'I have had no communication with Ahmed Nur Saeed Elmi since June 2011. He placed that paper down and produced photographs from London in 2015, 4 years after you alleged you had no interaction, showing archived Instagram pictures. You and Ahmed Elmi together in London, distinctively you, distinctively him, unmistakably together,' he said, looking at Omar. 'That is perjury, Congresswoman. You lied under oath in a judicial record which is a felony distinct from the marriage fraud and distinct from the immigration deceit. That is its own federal offense, he said, while Omar discovered her voice, trembling and guarded, claiming this is all removed from context. These are disproven plot theories from bigoted online writers, she said. But Bongino's tone became cutting, saying, Congresswoman, nothing I just displayed has been disproven. UK state records displaying the father's name are not disproven. Your refugee petition showing the identical father's name is not disproven. And the email naming you sister is not disproven. 6 sworn declarations are not disproven. Photos refuting your sworn declaration are not disproven. He paused. And you know what would disprove all of this? One straightforward thing, a DNA analysis causing the room to tense up. For if Ahmed Elmi is not your brother, a DNA test confirms it. Simple, effortless, 1 hour, swab your cheek, swab his cheek. Lab outcomes return. Not related. Story finished. You are cleared. Everyone who blamed you appears foolish, he said, opening his hands, noting the Daily Mail asked you to take a DNA exam in 2019, and you declined. Multiple other news agencies asked for it. You declined. Members of Congress asked for it. You declined. And he asked why, leaning back in his seat. I will inform you why. Because you realize what that exam would reveal. You realize Ahmed Elmi is your brother. And you cannot hazard that test. It would demonstrate beyond any suspicion that you enacted federal immigration deceit, he said, while Omar was moving her head with tears appearing. I will not validate these bigoted assaults, she said, but Bongino's voice became icy, the street officer edge emerging. Let me tell you something, Congresswoman. I served in the 75th Precinct in East New York, Brooklyn, and do you realize what that is? One of the most perilous districts in New York City. I interacted with every ethnicity, every faith, every background, and I detained individuals of every skin tone and every belief. Do you know what I valued? Evidence, criminality, deception, he said, pointing at his papers. This is not regarding your race or your faith. This is not about you being a migrant. This is about federal offenses. Numerous federal felonies and immigration fraud is a federal violation, punishable by up to 5 years in jail, up to $250,000 in penalties, and for migrants who enact immigration scams. Deportation. He allowed that to register, saying you arrived in this nation as a refugee. This nation preserved your life, saved your kin, and provided you chances. Citizenship, eventually a position in Congress, and you compensated it by cheating the immigration structure, by rigging it, by wedding your brother to aid him, helping him get perks he was not owed. His voice elevating slightly, you know what that achieves. It renders every valid refugee suspicious. It causes people to distrust the framework. It makes Americans who are already doubtful about migration say, see, they enact fraud. You harm every truthful refugee, every honest migrant, because you could not adhere to the regulations, he said, closing that portion of his binder. Matrimonial deceit, immigration scams, perjury. Those are 3 federal crimes right there, and we are merely commencing. As we have not even discussed your taxes yet. Omar sat paralyzed. Her lawyers were scribbling desperately. Her aides were on their telephones. And the liberal portion of the audience had gone totally quiet. No more cheering, no more chanting, only disbelief, as Bongino retrieved a new segment from his file, saying, let us discuss your tax filings. Congresswoman, do you know what I discovered investigating fiscal scam cases in the Secret Service? Bongino started arranging his subsequent batch of papers. Follow the currency. Always track the funds. For money does not fabricate. People fabricate. But bank logs, tax forms, and financial papers speak the truth. He raised a fresh collection of sheets. 2014 and 2015, your federal tax declarations filed jointly. And do you know what married filing jointly implies, Congresswoman? It implies you are submitting taxes as a wedded pair with your spouse, your lawful husband or wife, he said, setting down the returns with Omar's autograph visible. In 2014, you submitted joint tax forms with Ahmed Abdisalan Hirsi, the father of your kids, the man you had a religious right with back in 2002. In 2015, the same occurrence, joint returns with Ahmed Hirsi, Bongino said, looking up at her, noting a problem, a significant problem. You were lawfully wed to Ahmed Elmi, not Ahmed Hirsi, Elmi, your brother, and the marriage was still effective as you did not legally divorce him until 2017. He took out the marriage license and the divorce petition date, placing them adjacent. So in 2014 and 2015, you filed joint tax forms with a man to whom you were not lawfully wed, while being legally married to a different man entirely, which is tax fraud, Congresswoman. He recited from a legal text, Title 26, United States Code Section 7206, making false declarations on tax returns, specifically subsection 1. Any individual who intentionally makes and signs any return or document containing a written declaration made under penalties of perjury, which they do not believe is true. He set it down, noting the penalty is up to 3 years incarceration, up to $100,000 in fines, plus the taxes due. Omar attempted to answer, saying, I rectified those submissions. But when? Asked Bongino, completing the thought for her. When you were apprehended. You amended them after the Minnesota Campaign Finance Board began investigating you, after reporters began asking queries, after the tale became public, not before. He leaned in, noting that fixing fraud after you are caught does not erase the fraud. It simply makes it confessed fraud. You signed those tax forms under threat of perjury. Look at your signature right there. You certified that everything on those returns was factual. But it was not factual. You claimed to be married to Ahmed Hirsi. You were not. You were married to Ahmed Elmi, which is material data. That is not a minor error. That is not a technical detail. That is fraud. But perhaps, Bongino went on, his voice adopting a mocking tone, perhaps you simply forgot you were wed to your brother. Maybe it slipped your memory. So let us discuss something where you certainly did not forget. Let us discuss perjury, he said, extracting a court record with the official stamp visible, dated August 2nd, 2017, a divorce petition. Hennepin County District Court, you petitioning to dissolve the marriage to Ahmed Nur Saeed Elmi, your brother. Your husband. Wait, which is it? He thumbed through the leaves, noting in this filing you make several declarations under oath, under penalty of perjury. And do you know what perjury is, Congresswoman? It is lying while under oath. It is a felony, a federal offense, a state crime, a grave crime, he said, finding the pertinent segment. Page 3, Application for Service by Alternate Means. This is where you claim you cannot locate Ahmed Elmi to serve him divorce papers. You state, and again, this is under penalty of perjury, quote, I have had no contact with Ahmed Nur Saeed Elmi since June 2011, unquote. He placed the paper down cautiously, saying June 2011, that is what you swore under oath in a legal filing with your signature right there. Right above the line that reads, I declare under penalty of perjury that everything I have stated in this document is true and correct. He stopped, allowing the strain to increase, saying, I have been a police officer for 20 years and have testified in court countless times. I understand what perjury signifies. It means if you lie on that paper, you go to jail. That is why people regard it seriously. That is why you consider carefully before you sign it, he said, extracting a manila envelope and opening it unhurriedly and theatrically. June 2015, London, England. Instagram posts, archived screen captures, timestamps, geotagged, the entire package, he said, laying out the photographs. You and Ahmed Elmi together in London. Distinct pictures. Your face, his face, together 4 years after you claimed you had no contact with him. He gestured at the images. That is you, correct? Designer hijab, unique features. That is you, and that is Ahmed Elmi. The same person from all the other pictures we possess, the same person from the marriage certificate photo. It is him, Bongino said, looking at Omar. Her face had become pallid. So let me understand this correctly. In June 2011, you allegedly ceased all contact with your brother-husband. But in 2015, you are photographed with him in London. Then in 2017, you file legal papers claiming you had not seen him since 2011. He tapped the records, that is perjury. Clear, simple, undeniable perjury. You lied under oath in a court filing about material facts. Omar's voice emerged frantic, saying the photos do not prove what? Bongino interrupted. Do not prove you were together. They do. Don't prove you had contact. They do. Don't prove you lied in your divorce filing. They do, he said, organizing his papers. Let me tell you something I learned in investigations. When someone lies about one thing, you start doubting everything they say. When someone commits one crime, you start looking for others and, Congresswoman, you have a pattern here, he said, counting on his fingers. Marriage fraud check, immigration fraud check, tax fraud check, perjury check. That is 4 federal felonies, 4 separate crimes. All documented, all provable. His voice became softer and more intense, saying, I guarded presidents for 12 years, George W. Bush and Barack Obama. 2 presidents I did not vote for, but I protected them because that was my duty. I followed the rules, every background check, every security clearance, every protocol by the book, he said, pointing at her. You are in Congress. You make laws. You are supposed to adhere to them. But you do not. You commit crimes and then call anyone who investigates you a racist. Well, I have news for you. I am a cop. I investigate crimes. That is what cops do. And when the evidence is this robust, we make arrests, he said, leaning back. Now I cannot arrest you. I am not that type of law enforcement anymore, but the proof is public. It is documented, and it is recorded. Everyone watching this knows precisely what you did. While Omar was weeping now, mascara running, her voice fracturing as she called this a witch hunt. You are persecuting me because you broke the law, Bongino completed, not shouting, not irate, just stating facts, multiple laws, multiple times, multiple felonies, he said, retrieving his next section. And speaking of breaking the law, let us discuss your campaign finances. Let us discuss Tim Minette. Let us discuss how you utilized campaign funds to pay for your affair. Bongino said, taking out a thick stack. Federal Election Commission filings, campaign finance reports, financial records. This section was weighted with evidence. Tim Minette, he began. Political consultant, married man, ran a firm called E Street Group. And do you know how I know all this? Because it is public record. FEC filings are public. Everyone can see them, he said, spreading out the filings. 2018, your campaign starts paying E Street Group. For what? Consulting services, digital consulting, travel expenses. And do you know how much? He asked, withdrawing a calculator. An actual physical calculator, which he held up, saying, "Let us add it up. 2018 approximately $190,000. 2019 approximately $180,000, totaling through 2019 $370,000 to one consulting firm, Tim Minet's firm." He placed the calculator down, saying, "Now I am not saying consulting is inherently wrong. Campaigns hire consultants. That is normal. But here is what is not normal: having an affair with your consultant while paying him massive amounts of campaign money." Omar tried to interrupt, mentioning her personal relationships. "Stop," Bongino said sharply. "Stop right there. This is not personal. When campaign funds are involved, when donor money is involved, when federal election law is involved, then it is very much public business." He took out a court document. Beth Minette, Tim Minette's wife. She filed for divorce in April 2019. And do you know what she said? Let me read directly from the court documents. He said, finding the relevant section, quote, "My husband, Tim Minette, told me in April 2019 that he was having an affair with Ilhan Omar. He informed me that he was in love with the congresswoman and that he wanted to dissolve our marriage." Bongino looked up, noting that is under oath in a legal filing, Beth Minette swearing that her husband confessed to having an affair with you while you were both married to other people, while his firm was receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars from your campaign. He withdrew more papers, saying, "But it gets better." Beth Minette gave a deposition, sworn testimony, in which she describes conversations with her husband about the affair, and she says something very interesting. He said, finding the quote, she testified that Tim told her, quote, "Don't worry about money. Ilhan's campaign is covering everything," unquote, causing the room to go completely silent. That statement hung in the air like a bomb. Ilhan's campaign is covering everything. Bongino repeated slowly. Campaign funds, donor money, money from working people who believed in you, who donated to elect you, who thought their money would go toward campaign activities. He took out specific FEC filings, saying, "Let us look at some of these expenses." March 2019. Travel expenses for E Street Group. $15,000 for a trip to California. Campaign event maybe, or maybe a romantic getaway, he said, flipping pages. April 2019. Same month, Beth Minette says the affair was admitted. More travel expenses, more consulting fees. May 2019, June 2019. July 2019, every single month. Huge payments, he said, extracting credit card records, campaign credit card statements. Dinners, hotels, flights, all charged to the campaign, all while you were having an affair, all while both of you were married to others. Bongino's voice became harder, saying, "You know what is particularly disgusting about this. Beth Minette was not just your consultant's wife. She worked in politics too. She had a career. She had a life. You destroyed her marriage. You broke up a family. And you used campaign funds to do it," he said while Omar was shaking her head, tears streaming, claiming, "This is unfair. You want to talk about unfair? Let me tell you what is unfair. Working people donating $20, $50, $100 because they believe in you, because they think you are fighting for them, and you take that money and use it to fund your affair." He slammed the documents down. "Not violent, just emphatic. That is unfair. That is theft. That is fraud. That is a violation of federal campaign finance law." He took out another section, saying, "But wait, there is more. March 2020. You marry Tim Minette. The affair is public now. Everyone knows. Beth Minette's divorce is finalized. You divorce Ahmed Hirsi. You marry Tim," he said, taking out post-2020 FEC filings. "Think the payments stopped. Think you stopped funneling money to your now husband? No, they increased, he said, reading amounts. 2020, $1.1 million, more than triple the previous year's combined. 2021, another million plus. You are now paying your husband's firm massive amounts of campaign money. Bongino looked at the committee and the cameras, saying, "Think about this. You marry the guy. He is now your husband, and you continue paying his company. Your campaign donors are now funding your household, your family income. That is a textbook conflict of interest. That is potentially illegal coordination between candidate and consultant. That is laundering campaign funds into personal income," he said, pulling out FEC regulations and reading them aloud. Federal election law prohibits using campaign funds for personal use. Personal use includes payments to family members beyond fair market value. It includes payments that primarily benefit the candidate personally rather than the campaign, he said, setting the regulations down. You are paying your husband over $1 million a year for consulting. Does that seem like fair market value? Or does that seem like you are using campaign money to support your household? Omar tried again, saying the FEC reviewed. Bongino corrected, "Multiple ethics complaints have been filed, the investigation is ongoing, and everyone watching this can see what you did." His voice went quiet and intense, saying, "I have seen corruption in my 20 years. I have seen politicians take bribes. I have seen lobbyists buy access. I have seen all kinds of financial crimes. But this is cruder than most of it." He gestured at the pile of documents. "You had an affair, used campaign money to fund it, destroyed a marriage, then married the guy and kept funneling donor money to him. That is not consulting. That is not legitimate business. That is personal enrichment. That is fraud," he said, leaning forward one final time. "And the worst part, you did all this while claiming to fight for working people, while claiming to represent the struggling, the poor, the vulnerable. They donated to you, and you used their money to fund your affair and then support your wealthy husband." He closed that section of his folder, saying marriage fraud, tax fraud, perjury, campaign finance fraud. How many felonies is that? I have lost count, but we are not done, because there is something even more fundamental we need to discuss. He took out his next section, saying, "Let us talk about what you did to the refugee system that saved your life." Bongino's tone shifted, less cop, more personal. This was emotional for him. "You came to this country as a refugee." He began with his voice softer now. 1995. You were 12 or 13 years old. Your family fled Somalia civil war. Terrible situation. You spent 4 years in a refugee camp in Kenya. Dadaab refugee camp. I have seen photos. I have read about it. Horrific conditions, he said, taking out documents. Then America accepted you, your family, refugee status. You came to Minnesota, got settled, got help, got opportunities, learned English, went to school, North Dakota State University. Got your degree, he said, looking at Omar. 2000, age 17 or 18, you became a United States citizen. Naturalized full citizen, all rights, all privileges. This country welcomed you, protected you, gave you everything. He paused. And 19 years later, you are in Congress, refugee to Congresswoman. That is the American dream, right? That is proof the system works. Proof that America welcomes people who need help. Proof that opportunity exists here. His voice hardened. But you did not just benefit. You exploited it. You defrauded it. You betrayed it, he said, extracting the marriage fraud evidence again. You married your brother to gain immigration, to get him benefits, to help him circumvent the system. The same system that saved your life You turned around and defrauded it. Bongino stood up and walked a few steps. Street cop lecture mode, you know what that does. You know what happens when a refugee commits immigration fraud. It makes every refugee suspect, every legitimate asylum seeker gets questioned harder, gets investigated more thoroughly, gets their claims doubted. He pointed at her. You proved the skeptics right. Everyone who says refugees commit fraud, you proved them right. Everyone who says we need stricter vetting, you proved them right. Everyone who says immigrants game the system, you proved them right. His voice rose. I have been protecting people for 20 years. NYPD, Secret Service, FBI. I have worked with immigrants from every country, every background, most of them honest, law-abiding, hard-working. They follow the rules. They are grateful for the opportunity. They contribute. He gestured broadly. And then there is you. You come here as a refugee, get every advantage, every opportunity, and you commit federal crimes multiple times, and you hide behind identity politics when anyone questions you. Omar tried to speak, saying, you do not understand what it is like. Don't understand. Bongino's voice went sharp. Don't understand what? Don't understand being an immigrant. My grandparents were immigrants, Italian, came through Ellis Island, worked their whole lives, followed every rule, never asked for handouts, built a life, he said, pointing at himself. I grew up in Queens, working-class neighborhood. My father was a city worker, my mother a secretary. Nobody handed me anything. I worked for everything, became a cop, dangerous streets, East New York, Brooklyn, the 75th precinct. You know what that was like. War zone. His voice was passionate now. Real. I worked my way up. NYPD to Secret Service. Protected presidents. Earned my way, and I followed every single rule, every background check, every security clearance, every protocol. Because that is what you do in this country. You follow the rules, he said, turning back to Omar. You did not follow the rules. You broke them repeatedly, deliberately, and you claim anyone who calls you out is attacking you. Because of your identity, he walked back to the table, sat down, looked directly at her. This is not about you being Muslim. This is not about you being black. This is not about you being an immigrant. This is not about you being a woman. He tapped the documents. This is about federal crimes, about fraud, about lying, about corruption, about betraying the system. That saved your life. His voice went quieter, more intense. You lecture Americans about compassion, about welcoming refugees, about opening doors. And I actually agree with some of that. I think we should help people fleeing war, fleeing persecution, fleeing violence. He leaned forward. But we cannot help people if we cannot trust the system. And we cannot trust the system when people like you commit fraud, when you game it, when you exploit it. For personal benefit, he said, taking out one final document, you want to know what would clear all this up, what would prove your innocence, what would shut down every accusation. He held it up. DNA test. Simple, easy, quick. Proves Ahmed Elmi is not your brother. Vindicates you completely. Makes me look like an idiot. Makes everyone who accused you look like conspiracy theorists. He set it down, but you will not take it. Multiple outlets requested it. You refused multiple times. Why? He asked, staring at her. Because you know what it would show. You know he is your brother. You know the test would prove you committed immigration fraud, and you cannot risk that. Omar was crying openly now, voice breaking, saying, I do not have to prove anything to you. You do not have to prove anything to me, Bongino agreed, but you should want to prove it to America. You should want to clear your name, unless you cannot, unless the accusations are true, he said, organizing his papers. Refugee to Congresswoman could have been an inspiration, could have shown that the system works, that America welcomes those in need. That opportunity exists. He looked at her with something like disappointment. Instead, you proved that some people will exploit any system, will break any rule, will commit any fraud, and will call anyone who questions them a bigot. He took out his next section, saying, "But let us get back to specifics because I want to try something. I want to ask you some very simple questions, and I want you to answer them yes or no. Can you do that?" "Congresswoman," asked Bongino, settling back in his chair. Interrogation mode. This was what he trained for. Decades of questioning suspects. Decades of spotting lies. This was his element. Internal investigations. He began voice conversational. Innocent people answer questions. They are eager to clear their names. They cooperate. They provide evidence. They want the truth out. He paused. Guilty people? They deflect. They attack the questioner. They claim persecution. They refuse to answer. They hide. He looked at Omar. Every single question I have asked you today, you have deflected. You have attacked me. You have claimed this is racist, Islamophobic, a witch hunt, but you have not answered the questions. He took out a legal pad, fresh page, pen ready. So let us try this. Simple questions, yes or no answers. That is it. Just answer the questions. He clicked his pen. Question 1. Is Ahmed Nur Said Elmi your brother? Yes or no? Omar looked at her lawyers. They whispered. She turned back. These allegations are baseless conspiracy theories. Yes or no? Bongino interrupted. Simple question. Is he your brother? I have already addressed this in previous statements. That is not a yes or no. Is Ahmed Nur Said Elmi your brother? Omar's jaw clenched. I refuse to dignify. Refusal to answer, Bongino said, writing it down. Got it? Noted? Moving on, he looked up. Question 2. Did you file joint tax returns with Ahmed Hirsi in 2014 and 2015 while legally married to Ahmed Elmi? Omar consulted with her lawyers again, saying, I corrected those filings through the proper. That is a yes, Bongino said, writing. You did file joint returns with someone you were not married to while married to someone else? Correct. The filings were amended, yes or no? Did you file those returns as I described? Silence. Omar looked trapped. Silence noted. Bongino said, I will take that as a yes, since you did not deny it. Next question. He looked up. Question 3. In your 2017 divorce filing, did you state, under penalty of perjury, that you had no contact with Ahmed Elmi since June 2011? Omar's voice came out defensive. Legal documents have specific. Yes or no? Did you make that statement in that filing? Yes, but yes, thank you. First straight answer. Bongino wrote it down. Question 4. Were you photographed with Ahmed Elmi in London in 2015? Omar shook her head, saying, those photos do not prove. Were you photographed with him in 2015? 4 years after you claimed you had no contact, her lawyers whispered urgently. She did not answer. Refusal to answer. Bongino noted, interesting, he continued. Question 5. Did your campaign pay Tim Manette's company approximately $370,000? Between 2018 and 2019, campaign expenditures are all properly disclosed. That is, yes, $370,000. Correct. The FEC filings show, yes, got it. He wrote it down. Question 6. Were you having an affair with Tim Minot? During this time period, Omar's face went red. My personal life. Beth Minot testified under oath that you were. In her divorce filing, is her testimony false? I am not going to discuss my personal refusal to answer, Bongino said. But we have testimony under oath from his ex-wife, so I will note that as confirmed by third-party witness. He looked up again. Question 7. After you married Tim Minot in 2020, did your campaign continue paying his company? And did those payments increase to over $1 million? Consulting fees are determined by yes or no. Did payments increase after marriage? The services provided were yes or no. Silence. I will check the FEC filings myself. Bongino said they are public, and yes, they increased substantially. He set his pen down, looked at the legal pad, looked at the committee, looked at Omar. 7 questions, 7 deflections, not one straight answer, not one honest response. He stood up. You know what I learned interrogating suspects for 20 years. This right here, he pointed at her. This is what guilt looks like. This is how criminals respond when cornered with evidence. He walked a few steps. Innocent people say no, that is not true, and here is proof. They provide evidence. They welcome investigation. They clear their name. He turned back. You attack me, you claim racism, you refuse to answer. You hide behind your identity. You use your religion as a shield. You claim victimhood. His voice went hard. But the evidence does not care about your feelings. Documents do not care about your identity. Facts do not care. About political correctness, he pointed at his folder. I have UK government documents, US government documents, court filings, tax returns, FEC filings, sworn testimony, photos, emails, witnesses. He spread his hands. What do you have? Accusations of racism, claims of conspiracy theories, refusal to answer questions, refusal to take a DNA test. He walked back to his seat. In my 20 years in law enforcement, I have never seen an innocent person refuse a DNA test that would prove their innocence. Never, not once. Innocent people take that test immediately. He sat down, looked directly at her. You will not take it because you cannot. Because it would prove. You married your brother, and that would end your career, end your freedom, possibly end your citizenship. Omar was sobbing now, makeup ruined, voice barely working, saying, "This is harassment. This is persecution. I do not have to." "And you do not have to sit here," Bongino agreed. "You can leave, walk out, storm off, claim victimhood. That is what guilty people do," he said, organizing his papers. "But everyone watching this knows the truth. You committed federal crimes, multiple felonies, and you are hiding behind identity politics because you cannot defend yourself. But let me address one more thing, because people watching are probably wondering if you are so guilty. If the evidence is so strong, why have you not been charged? Why have you not been arrested? Why aren't you in prison?" he said, holding up the papers. "Let me explain why you are probably going to get away." Bongino's tone changed again, bitter, frustrated. This was personal. "You are sitting there wondering if I am so guilty. Why am I not in handcuffs? Good question. Let me answer it," he said, extracting a timeline. In 2016, conservative media starts investigating your marriages. Questions arise. Evidence accumulates. U.S. Attorney for Minnesota. Obama appointee Andy Lugar. He issues a letter saying they are not investigating. Convenient. He moved down the timeline. 2017, Trump takes office. New administration. New prosecutors. should investigate right, should look at all this evidence. They do not. Why? Because you are a rising progressive star. You are a squad member. You check every diversity box. Prosecuting you would be political suicide. He tapped the timeline. 2018, you are elected to Congress. Now, you are protected by even more political considerations. Now you are a member of Congress. Going after you looks like persecution. Even though the evidence is overwhelming, he pulled out statutes. But here is the real problem. Statute of limitations. Marriage fraud. From 2009, we are at 15 or 16 years now. Some statutes of limitations are 5 years. Might be too late. Tax fraud from 2014 to 2015, 6 years typically, could be expired. He read from legal documents. Federal marriage fraud statute up to 5 years prison, but must be prosecuted within a certain time frame. Immigration fraud, similar issues. Perjury from 2017, that is more recent, still potentially prosecutable. He set the papers down. But here is the political reality. You are a minority woman, Muslim immigrant, progressive Democrat, squad member. Going after you would be called racist, Islamophobic, sexist, political persecution. His voice went hard with frustration. Prosecutors are scared. They do not want the media backlash. They do not want to be accused of targeting you because of your identity. So they do nothing. They let it slide. They hope it goes away. He looked at the committee, at the cameras. That is the system we have. Different rules for different people. If you are politically protected, if you check the right boxes, if you have the right support, you can commit crimes and face no consequences. He pointed at her. You should be in prison, or at minimum facing serious charges. Marriage fraud, immigration fraud, tax fraud, perjury, campaign finance violations, that is multiple felonies. He took out recent news articles, but you know what? It might not be over. Tom Homan, border czar for the Trump administration, he is pulling your files, looking at what can still be prosecuted. FBI under new leadership, he smiled slightly. My leadership, we are reviewing everything, he read from a recent statement. Tom Homan, quote, we are looking at the evidence, some statute of limitations issues, but we are examining what legal options remain. That is not over, Congresswoman. That investigation is active. He pulled out more documents, and there is another possibility. People do not talk about if you committed immigration fraud, if you married your brother to get him citizenship. That could affect your citizenship. He read from immigration law, citizenship obtained through fraud or misrepresentation can be revoked. Denaturalization, it is rare but it happens. If it is proven you committed immigration fraud even years ago, even decades ago, they can revoke your citizenship. He looked up. And once citizenship is revoked, deportation becomes possible. Back to Somalia, back to where you came from. That is the law. Omar's eyes went wide. Fear visible now. Do not like that, Bongino asked. Do not want to face those consequences. Then you should have followed the rules, should have been grateful for the opportunity you were given, instead of defrauding. He organized his papers one final time, but realistically, you are probably going to get away with it. Political protection, media shield, identity politics armor, prosecutors too scared to act, statute of limitations expired on some crimes. He looked directly at her. But make no mistake, everyone knows what you did. The evidence is public. It is documented. It is irrefutable, and history will record it. He stood up. I spent 20 years in law enforcement, NYPD, Secret Service, FBI. I followed the rules, played by the book. I have seen criminals get away with crimes because they had the right connections, the right political protection. He pointed at her. You are one of them. You committed federal crimes multiple times, and you are hiding. Calling anyone who investigates you a racist, playing the victim while you are actually the criminal. His voice rose with passion. But I will tell you something. The American people are not stupid. They see through it. They know what you did. They know you married your brother. They know you committed tax fraud. They know you lied under oath. They know you funneled campaign money to your affair partner, then husband. They know you came here as a refugee and repaid America by defrauding the immigration system. They know you are corrupt. And one day when you are gone from Congress, when your political career is over, all anyone will remember is that Ilhan Omar committed federal crimes and got away with it because the system was too broken. He sat back down. Calm now. The anger burned out. That is the truth. That is the reality. You win for now. You get away with it for now. But everyone knows, and history will judge you. He closed his folder. Final. I am done, Madam Chairwoman. I have presented the evidence. The American people can judge for themselves. The hearing room erupted the moment Bongino finished, media scrambling. Staffers on phones, committee members arguing, security trying to maintain order. Omar did not say another word. Her lawyers flanked her. They rushed her out of the room through a side door, away from cameras, away from reporters. But you cannot escape the internet. Within minutes, clips were everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Every platform. Hashtags trending worldwide in under an hour. Brother marriage, tax fraud, campaign finance fraud, all trending. C-SPAN ratings shattered records. The hearing footage replayed continuously on every news channel. Conservative media went 24/7 coverage. Mainstream media could not ignore it anymore. Even progressive outlets struggled to defend her. Concerning, said one MSNBC host, clearly uncomfortable. These allegations deserve serious investigation. CNN tried harder to defend her. Bongino's attacks were aggressive and potentially inappropriate. But even they had to acknowledge the documents, the evidence. Fox News ran victory laps. Bongino destroys Omar with facts. Squad member exposed for multiple felonies. The coverage was relentless. By the next morning, Democrats were in full panic mode. Nancy Pelosi issued a careful statement. We take these allegations seriously and support thorough investigation through appropriate channels. Translation, we are distancing ourselves. Chuck Schumer said nothing. Absolutely nothing. His office declined comment. Squad members tried to support her, AOC tweeted. This is a coordinated attack on a woman of color in Congress. We stand with Ilhan. But even that got ratioed. Thousands of comments asking about the evidence, asking if evidence is racist, telling her to address the facts. Rashida Tlaib defended her. Ayanna Pressley defended her. But their voices were drowned out by the sheer volume of evidence, now public, documents everywhere, people sharing photos, timelines, analyses. Within 3 days, a petition appeared. Ahmed Hassan started it. A refugee advocate in Minneapolis came to America legally from Somalia, waited years in the system, followed every rule. He watched the hearing, saw the evidence, and he was furious. I came here legally. He told reporters outside his community center, I waited. I followed the rules. I was vetted. Background checks, interviews, years of waiting. And she commits fraud. She makes it harder for every legitimate refugee. His petition. Investigate Ilhan Omar for immigration fraud. The text was simple. We, the undersigned, demand that the FBI and DOJ fully investigate Representative Ilhan Omar for immigration fraud, tax fraud, perjury, and campaign finance violations. The evidence presented demands action. No one is above the law. First day, 50,000 signatures. Week 1, 200,000. Week 2, 500,000. Ahmed did interviews everywhere. CNN, Fox, MSNBC. His story was powerful. Legal refugee who followed the rules. Advocating for accountability, she betrayed the system that saved her life, he said on Anderson Cooper. She betrayed every honest refugee because now people will look at us with more suspicion because she proved skeptics right. Cooper tried to push back, but the allegations are not proven. The evidence is overwhelming. Ahmed interrupted. Same father name, Instagram posts, email, 6 witnesses, photos contradicting sworn statement. Refusal to take DNA test. That is not innocent behavior. Even Cooper had to acknowledge that Sarah Mitchell came forward next, friend of Beth Manette, watched her friend's marriage destroyed. Beth is a good person, Sarah told Fox News. She did not deserve what happened. And no, campaign funds paid for the affair, donor money from working people, that is theft. She started her own petition. Hold Ilhan Omar accountable for campaign finance violations. That got another 100,000 signatures quickly. Conservative Legal Foundation filed formal complaints to the FBI, to DOJ, to the House Ethics Committee, to the Minnesota Attorney General, demanding investigation, demanding prosecution. The complaints were detailed, professional, citing specific laws, specific evidence, specific violations. Hard to ignore. Tom Homan gave an interview. We are reviewing everything, he said on Fox News. Immigration fraud is serious. If she married her brother to game the system that is a federal crime, statute of limitations might be an issue. But we are examining what can still be prosecuted, reporter asked. Could she be deported? Homan did not smile. If citizenship was obtained through fraud, it can be revoked. That is the law. Denaturalization is possible. And after that, yes, deportation is possible. We are looking at all options. That clip went viral. Millions of views. The idea that Omar could be deported galvanized conservatives and enraged progressives, but the law was clear. Fraud invalidates citizenship. FBI, under Bongino's leadership, announced a review of the case. New evidence has come to light. We are examining what was not investigated previously. This is not political. This is about federal crimes. Even Democrats who defended Omar went quiet. Too many felonies, too much evidence, too politically toxic. Her fundraising collapsed. Donors pulled out. Major progressive paxies redirected money. Tech billionaires who supported her stopped responding. She had become poison, primary challengers announced. A moderate Democrat, a Republican, even another progressive who promised integrity. I support progressive policies, the challengers said, but we need representatives who follow the law, who do not commit crimes. Polls showed her favorability dropping in her own district among her own constituents. 6 months later, Omar held a press conference. She looked exhausted, makeup perfect, but face drawn. She had aged visibly, after much consideration and consultation. With my family, she read from a prepared statement, I have decided not to seek re-election. I want to spend time. With my family, and explore new opportunities outside of Congress? Translation: she was done. Politically finished. Career over. The media tried to spin it as her choice, stepping down to focus on family, but everyone knew the truth. She had been destroyed, exposed, forced out. Ahmed Hassan issued a statement. Good, but it is not enough. She should face charges. She should be investigated. She should be held accountable. Justice requires it. Sarah Mitchell agreed. She is escaping responsibility, walking away, getting to keep her freedom while evidence is public. That is not justice. That is the system failing. Conservative media declared victory. Bongino destroyed Omar's career. Squad member forced out after fraud exposure. The coverage was triumphant. But Tom Homan was not done. Investigation continues, he said in a statement. Just because she is leaving Congress does not mean the law doesn't apply. We are still examining potential charges. That investigation continues today, files being reviewed, evidence being analyzed, prosecutors considering options. Will she be charged? Unknown? Political considerations? Statute of limitations challenges? Proving some allegations beyond reasonable doubt. But everyone knows what she did. Everyone knows she married her brother. Everyone knows she committed tax fraud. Everyone knows she lied under oath. Everyone knows she funneled campaign money to her affair partner. Everyone knows she came here as a refugee and repaid America by defrauding the immigration system. The evidence is public. The documents are real. The witnesses testified. The facts are facts, and history will record it all. Ilhan Omar came to America as a refugee, rose to Congress, and fell because she committed federal crimes, and thought she could hide behind identity politics. She was wrong. Dan Bongino, street cop from Queens, protected presidents, made it to FBI deputy director, and used his platform to expose corruption with evidence, with facts, with the truth. That is the story. That is what happened when Ilhan Omar tried to destroy Dan Bongino. She destroyed herself instead. Stories like this matter because politicians like Ilhan Omar count on you not knowing facts. They count on identity politics protecting them. They count on calling investigators racist instead of answering questions. They count on the media ignoring evidence. They count on prosecutors being too scared to act. But the evidence is out there. The documents are real. The facts do not lie. If this opened your eyes to who Ilhan Omar really is, share this story. Let people know the truth. Let them see the evidence. Let them understand what she did. Drop a comment. Should she be prosecuted? Should she be deported? What do you think justice looks like here? Subscribe for more truth, more facts, more accountability, because politicians like Omar need to be exposed. The corrupt need to be called out. The criminals need to face consequences. This is just one story, but there are plenty more politicians committing crimes. Plenty more corruption to expose, plenty more truth to tell. See you in the next one.